Hey everyone, Brad the mechanic here. Today we're working on a 2003 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport. What we're going to do is we're going to change the CV shaft. So we're going to start out by getting this wheel off. We're going to jack up the car, get it on the jack stand, and get this wheel off. So now we got the car jacked up, got a jack stand under it. I also took the wheel, and I'll throw the wheel under the car too, just one, to get it out of the way, and two, it's a fail-safe if the jack stand and the jack go. Then we'll have the wheel to stop the vehicle from crushing you. So let's move up there and see what we got to take off in order to get this CV shaft out. So we're getting under here, we're looking here, we're going to have to take this axle nut off. We're going to take the brake caliper off. Now I'm probably going to take just the caliper bracket bolts off if I can get to them, make it a little bit easier. But if we don't have to, we won't take these off. So we're going to take these off of the strut, and that's holding up the knuckle. We'll get this out, and we might have to take this tie rod end off, and then this knuckle will fold forward and we can get the CV shaft right out of there. So let's get it done. Alright, so starting out here, I am just going to start out, take this tie rod end off. I put a little bit of WD on these, a little bit of penetrant actually, to get these off. They should come right off. So we're going to take this tie rod end off, and then we're going to take a few of these off to give ourselves enough room to have the knuckle come forward in order to get the CV shaft out. So we'll get this out and a couple of these out and maybe zip these off as well. And we're going to use a 19mm to get this tie rod end off. It might be different on your vehicle, but this one has a 19. Boom. So we are not replacing this tie rod end, and we have to get this out of here without damaging it. You can use a pickle fork, but it'll damage this boot. You do not want to ever hit the threads, because then you'll never be able to get them out. So what you do is you take your hammer, you hit right here on this, and the shock will let the tie rod end come out. Just like that. You don't have to hit any threads, don't have to do any damage to the tie rod end to get it out. So now let's move on to these control arm bolts that hold the strut here. These are also 19mm. So let's get these zipped off here. Boom. So we'll lightly tap these to get them out. What you can do is, what you're going to want to do is keep this nut on here a little ways, and then tap it with a hammer. These are going to be kind of hard to come out, so I'm going to take a little bit more time on them. But you're going to want to put this nut on if you're going to hit this with a hammer, because you'll mess up the threads and not be able to get them on. Otherwise, you'll have to get the air chisel and get the punch and punch it right in the center to pop these out. This is a Michigan vehicle, so everything's extra rusty and everything takes a little bit more work. So if you're not in the rust belt, these will probably come right out for you. And just to give myself a little bit more room before taking this last nut out, because I'm going to have to bang on it, I'm going to get these two 12 mils out, pull this off, give myself a little bit more room so I don't hit the wheel speed sensor while I'm trying to bang on that. And just to note, there was actually two 12s there and one 12 here. So now this is out of the way enough to start smacking this bad boy. Okay, so now for the axle nut. The socket that I use is 1 1/4, but I'm pretty sure there's a metric one that works too, but this is the one I use and it works great because it fits perfectly. So I'm going to zip this off, and now that we have these control arm bolts off, for the knuckle, these knuckle bolts that hook onto the strut, they're out, and so I'm going to pull this out once I get this off. And then I'm going to pull this out and be able to pull the CV shaft from inside here. I'll show you. So again, 1 1/4 socket on a 1/2 inch impact. Boom, baby. So now I'm going to push this CV shaft in a little bit, wiggle this until it comes loose. Might have to get a pry bar behind it, but usually I could just pop it out by wiggling it. So we'll get the pry bar, put that in there a little ways. The brake caliper is still held on by the cord, but we should still have enough play to get this CV shaft out. So push it up here a little ways, get it to come out. Just about there. Sometimes you got to turn the wheel a little bit more, pull it out. There we go. So now the next part is we're going to go up under here where the CV shaft is, and where it goes into the transmission. I'm going to use my pry bar. I'm going to pop it out. There's a little C-clip in there, so I'll show you how to do that. Alright guys, I'm under here. I do have a little tiny drain pan because sometimes when you pop these out of the transmission, they leak a little bit of fluid. So I'm going to get my pry bar right up in here and try to pop this out, because all it takes is a good smack and it should come loose. Get it in here. Don't know if that worked. No, okay. So we'll get it up in here. Sometimes it's a little harder than other times, but we always get it every time. So just gotta kind of find the right spot to get your thing in there. So what I'll do sometimes is I'm gonna get my pry bar up like this on the corner of it. Alright, so let's get it off. Alright, so we got this free from there, so now we should just be able to pull it right out like so, and then in with the new one. We got a new one here. Get it fed in there. You're going to want to make sure you're going right into that hole in the transmission, nice and straight. You don't want to go in crooked because there's a seal right there in the transmission that you don't want to break. So what you can do is kind of use once you get it straight in there, use the little bit of play that's in the axle, and you can push it in that way. So now we're going, once we get the CV shaft in there, we'll throw this on hand tight, and then we will work on getting these strut bolts back in there. We'll have to move this around a little bit and get these in there. Now one of these goes on the top and one goes on the bottom, so if it's not fitting, this bigger one I believe goes on the top. So let's get those in. So we got these tight now, and we got the axle nut tight, and now we are going to put the tie rod end in. Kind of wiggle it around a little bit, get your nut back on there, and let's see if this will spin on. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So that one went on there just fine. Now we're going to put these 2 and 3, or there's 1 here and 2 here. These bolts, these 12 mil bolts, we'll get that on there. And then for this knuckle, or for this axle here, you're going to want to take your screwdriver and punch this in a little bit and dent it in. You can see now I dented it in, so what this does is this keeps this from loosening up here. So now we got the tie rod end in, we got the wheel tight, we're going to throw the wheel back on. So thank you guys for watching. You don't have to like or subscribe, I just want you to fix your shit, so go out there and fix it, alright? See ya.